Hey everyone, Bethany and Nikki here with Nectarful. Today we are talking about expectations around the holidays. Everybody has expectations, and sometimes they're met, sometimes they're not, and there can be some sticky things that
Yeah.
we have to navigate. There's also lots of joy in the holidays, and we want to be able to embrace that fully, right?
Yeah.
And be really present and people be there with the people that we love, and maybe some harder personalities that we love that we still need to just navigate and be who we want to be around. So hi Nikki, anything
Hi.
to pitch in to the intro, or we can just dive in?
Yeah, we're just hoping to help people navigate the holidays. It can be tricky with family or friends or lack thereof, and so we just want to be here to support anyone who's struggling.
Yeah, definitely. So we're just going to touch on kind of some practical things today.
Yeah.
Both of us have kind of a focus around healthy, healthy boundaries, healthy spirituality, mental health. We are both very passionate about that and coming around people with that. So we'll touch on boundaries a little bit.
Great.
So boundaries are expectations and needs that we all have that help us feel safe and sane. So we want to stay healthy. We want to stay balanced. We want to stay present, right, for people that we love. And I think a lot of that starts with getting to know ourselves first. So there's lots of really good general wisdom out there, but boundaries are not cookie cutter. So we don't want to just like, oh, well, this is what somebody else did. I need to do that. And now I'm trying to fit my life into this thing that maybe doesn't actually fit. So my encouragement to people would be take a little time and kind of get to know yourself, maybe around like, let's go with family gatherings.
Right.
So what do I love about family gatherings? What do I find to be really challenging or difficult? And then kind of get curious about that. Like maybe there's something I can do, right? Because boundaries, we don't control other people. It's about how you want to interact with the world. So maybe there's something for those sticky parts, some support that I need, or some space that I need. I know that's been me in the past. I remember going home. It wasn't specifically a holiday, but it was for my grandpa's funeral. And I remember just on the plane thinking like, I'm going to give myself permission to just kind of step away and take some like quiet time by myself every now and then throughout the day. And that really, really helped. I just knew that I needed that. I knew I wanted to be there and enjoy family, but also acknowledging everyone grieves differently. And some people did that by talking constantly and being like very, very present with people. And I needed some space.
Yeah. How did
And I
you
do that
communicate
during
that?
holidays. Yeah. So sometimes I would, like, if I was in the middle of a conversation or something and just kind of realizing like I'm feeling kind of overstimulated, I would maybe wait for like a natural pause in the conversation, so it wasn't like this instant like I need this, I need that.
Right.
But kind of wait for a pause and be like, hey, I'll be back in a few minutes. And so it didn't have to be this big like, hello everyone, I need space, you need to give it to me.
Right.
Bye. But it was hey, I'm gonna step out for a few minutes. If I'm remembering correctly, I think I had also told my mom that I was kind of planning to do that, so she was also like support person in that.
Right.
So if someone was like, where's Bethany, she's like, oh, she's taking a minute.
That's good.
And so having someone else kind of in on it, like someone else, hey, I need this, but it didn't have to be this big like announcement to the whole family. And I think we have lots of opportunities like that.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who maybe struggles with communicating boundaries kindly, like maybe somebody is a little too harsh.
Mm-hmm.
What would
Yeah.
your advice be?
Yeah. So I think there's, if you struggle in general with kind communication,
Mm,
um, that's probably going to come out in your boundary communication as well. So
yeah,
I would recommend, if you know that about yourself, start small. And
right.
someone asks you to do something that you're not able to do, say, I'm not able to do that right now. Is there someone else you can ask, or something? Like, you can kind of help connect people still to the
Mm,
support that they're asking for, even if it's not something that you're able to do.
okay.
Um, and I think too, when we know, because we know ourselves, we're learning about ourselves, and we've thought about, okay, this is something that I need. This is a boundary I need to stay safe and sane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then we can, because we've paused, and then we can give that as a thoughtful response versus a reaction.
I like
So
that.
I'm
Yeah.
not reacting, but hey, I've thought about it. This is what I need.
Yeah.
It'll be very direct. It doesn't have to be flowery or like give false praise or something, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be like, hey, I've thought about it. This is what I need. I'm going to do that.
Mm.
And
Okay.
and then you follow through and you do it. That can be a
Yeah.
hard thing, but yeah.
That's really helpful, because I asked the question because I can fall into the blunt boat sometimes. And I think sometimes I just struggle with like standing up for myself, I guess, is how I view it sometimes. Or protecting my kids is how I view it sometimes. Um, and I think sometimes I need that little bit. It sounds almost like taking like just like a breather, a break to before you communicate is best. Um, so that it is a response rather than a reaction. Um, and so that I know, especially when people struggle with mental health issues, and they're feeling triggered about something, it can turn into a big emotional reaction rather than a thoughtful response. And so I know I've struggled with that in the past. So that's really, I think, practical advice for dealing with maintaining boundaries and expectations around the holidays, right? Um, and especially around having children around the holidays too. I last year my daughter was newly home from the hospital. So she was born 3 months early. So we were really careful about her health. We were going to participate in our family gathering, but then somebody was exposed to COVID. And so we had to, unfortunately, just have like a virtual gathering, which was hard. It was really hard not to all be together, but to have that boundary of keeping my daughter safe, keeping her health safe, it was important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What encouragement would you have, maybe for people that like we are, like I am being triggered. I'm in the midst of something has kind of really struck a chord that's maybe painful or difficult for me. How do we navigate those moments?
Um, I think, well, it depends on, I think the trigger sometimes, and depends on how raw you are. If you know that it's a trigger that's really raw, really new, um, I would recommend staying quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard to control those emotions, and staying quiet and maybe just excusing yourself um, for that moment so that you can just go process. I know for me that would look like either calling or texting my sister to process really quickly, praying, reading scripture, trying to just sort of get my head back to a neutral space. If it's a less emotionally heightened trigger, then I think kind of like what you said before, sort of taking a pause to make sure you give a thoughtful and respectful response. But still protecting in a way that would protect your own mental health. Because of course you don't want to go to a family gathering and leave triggered.
Yeah.
Right. You want to protect your mental health. So communicating that, like, hey, I understand that's something that you really want to talk about. Unfortunately, that's not something I can talk about right now. But I will pray for you in that, or something like that. Something that shows that you are loving and caring towards your family or friend, but still protects you from sort of rehashing whatever it is that's coming up.
That's good. Yeah. So yeah, operating more in that response zone as much as we can. If we can't, we can remove ourselves and get the support that we do need, like you were saying, reaching out or praying. Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the support role can be really important. So if there is a family member or a friend even that you can kind of like keep in mind, like, okay, yeah, like if something goes sideways, this is the person I'm going to reach out to. That can help us not feel as lonely in those moments, because I think those moments do feel really we can feel really alone.
Yeah, like you had your mom in that instance. Having that support person can be really important. And really key to keeping you in a good headspace, and maintaining healthy communication with the people you're with.
Yeah. Well, and that reminds me too, I think something I've found helpful is if there are things that you can communicate ahead of time, to do that. Maybe not to like an extreme, like I need to control everything and I'm very anxious and this is how it needs to go, but like someone invites you over for a gathering and you want to go, but you only have a couple hours to be there. Or I know I have a friend who really enjoys time with her, like with her in-laws, but just knows that it can be like a really overstimulating environment for her. And so they go, but she's decided with her husband, and they know like we're going to be here for 2 hours, and we're going to like be fully present. We're fully there. And then we're going to head out. And that really shifted it, where she didn't feel like so like stuck in that environment, and was able to really enjoy it.
Yeah,
because she knew when the end was coming. But I think about things even like maybe if you have like some dietary restrictions, instead of like, hey, people need to figure out a whole menu for me, maybe I bring my own portion, or and can communicate that ahead of time. Or I feel like there's some things like that where we can kind of maybe, I think it's a kindness to communicate that to people, and can maybe mitigate some of the like shock, like, oh, I didn't know that you were going to leave so soon, or I didn't know you could eat this. I wouldn't have made as much if you if I knew you weren't gonna eat that. Or and those are, I know it can get more there's more tense relational things as well. I think those are kind of some basic examples, but if there are things that you can communicate ahead of time, I think about that maybe even with kids, like I don't know if you're working with like nap time, or like, hey, our kids blow kisses goodbye. They don't no kisses on the cheek, or I don't know if you have any examples. I know you were touching on some healthy boundaries for kids earlier.
Yeah, that was something that we had to focus on a lot last year for my daughter, because she was immunocompromised for the first year of her life. So yeah, we did communicate ahead of time with people, like, hey, no kissing like on her hands or her face, or like, please let us know if you or anyone you've been in contact with has been sick, because we had to be extra careful about that stuff. But yeah, I think communicating ahead of time and just making sure that you are still communicating out of kindness is really important. Um, I think it's fair for me to admit that there were some communications last year that I didn't handle super well, because I was so anxious about my daughter. We almost lost her a couple of times. So um, I think if I had taken a step back and like thought more carefully about the things I was saying and
Mm.
making sure that there was kindness, there was Christ weaved into what I was saying, um, it would have been better.
Mm.
But you live and learn, and that's it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I tell my kids that all the time. It's okay to make mistakes. But making sure that you learn from them, and that you continue to grow in Christ and grow in kindness. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I think, yeah, I think when we take like a position of humility,
Yeah.
um, maybe even if that same, family group is gathering this year, and hey, I realized last year we didn't communicate the way that I'd like to.
Mm,
Here's what I'm hoping this year can look like.
yeah.
It can be helpful. How do we respect other people's boundaries and like have compassion for their expectations?
Yeah, that's something that I think me and my husband have been navigating a lot lately, and just because both of our families are growing. My sister is married now, and my sister-in-law is having another kid very soon. She's about halfway through her pregnancy, which is very exciting. And so our family's growing, and so now we have all these different family units to
Yeah.
interact with, and we have to realize that just like we have our own family unit and we have our own boundaries, they're going to have theirs too, and that we need to treat them just as lovingly as we would hope that they would treat us with our boundaries. And so there hasn't been anything tense or anything like that, but just recognizing that it's okay if you don't understand what another person's boundary is or why it is. It's okay to not understand that, um, but still respect it. And I think just, yeah, staying in that, it's okay to not understand. It's not okay to fight, with someone else's boundaries. I think, um, or go past their boundaries,
Mm.
obviously. Um, if somebody just had a baby and they said, "Don't kiss my kid," and then you kiss their kid, that's kind of not okay. Um, but even if you don't understand why, I think still respecting and loving that person is what's most important, and making sure if that there's going to be like a touchy subject or something, you're aware of that, and that maybe it's even an unspoken boundary, like, hey, we know that this person's not okay hearing about this, so like as a family we're going to agree not to talk about it. um you know um what do you think about respecting other people's boundaries?
Yeah. 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 I like what you're saying. Yeah, showing that like consideration for other people and being okay. Maybe not understanding where it's coming from, but knowing it's coming from somewhere. I mean, I
Yeah.
think about that from like my own perspective when if there's a boundary or a limitation that I need to set for myself, that's coming from somewhere, and it's coming from something that I've realized that I need, not so much when it's healthy,
Yeah.
um, not so much out of like, if this person would just stop doing this, then I would be okay.
Mm,
And so when it's not like punitive, it's not like punishment
yeah.
for
Yeah.
someone else's behavior, but just me acknowledging I don't do well with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to make a different choice.
Mm-hmm.
That helps me stay healthy. So if I know that that's where I'm coming from, then extending that same like compassion to somebody else expressing
Right.
boundary, like that's probably coming from somewhere. I probably don't need to take it personally. Maybe there is something I can do to support them in that, come around them in that, or just let it, like, I'm just going to let it be, and not have to feel like I need to control that. So I think that's the beauty of like healthy relationships, right? Where we can
I guess that's ultimately what we're talking about, healthy relationships.
Yeah. And I guess I will put a caveat out there, like if you are dealing with maybe like someone who has like really narcissistic tendencies, or even like abuse, an abusive person in your life, this is gonna look different. I think everything we've talked about today,
everything we've said does not apply.
mutually respectful, healthy, loving relationships that still have some sticky parts. I think if anyone listening, if you are on the receiving end of abuse or anything like that, like please reach out to like licensed therapists, organizations that can really help you, because those are really nuanced, a little more unique. Maybe not unique, unfortunately, but they need maybe a deeper level of care than just saying, hey, I'm going to excuse myself and take a second. So do want to put that.
I do mention that.
Yeah. So what about we chatted about this a little bit before we started, Nikki. When all else, maybe not when all else fails, but at the end of the day, what's our hope? What are we kind of clinging to, our ultimate goal?
I think talking about expectations around the holidays and just expectations in general, it's important to remember that the only person's expectations we're trying to meet is Christ's. We're trying to show his holiness, his love, and if that makes people uncomfortable, or if other people aren't showing his love very well, what's most important is that we do that. We, like you and I had said, I think prior to starting our live, we're in charge of ourselves. We're in charge of our boundaries and how we communicate. And so making sure that everything we do and say is with the goal of honoring Christ, and loving people the way that he would want us to.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm reminded too, like even if other people like reject us or don't respect our boundaries, that like Christ always is there to receive us. And there's no punishment or shame. So whether, even if we miscommunicate or communicate in a way that we're not proud of, at the end of the day, that there is
forgiveness.
There's forgiveness. There's grace. He's exactly who we are hoping to be for others, and maybe how we hope we would be received by others in our life. He'll be that for us. Thanks, Nikki. If anyone listening, if especially, holidays are coming up. Thanksgiving's in a couple weeks. Christmas, maybe there's some specific scenarios you have in mind that you'd like to navigate. Myself or Nikki would be happy to work with you, meet with you a couple times, and get you set up really well for those interactions, or just in general, if this is an area that you want to kind of grow in and get to know yourself more, be able to experience just some solid mental health, solid spiritual health. Nikki is your girl if you're specifically wanting to look at boundaries. I'm happy to work with you. We have some fun overlap too. So either of us are happy to help you, and any of our other Nectarful coaches as well are so amazing. It's such an incredible group of women. So check out our website, check out everyone's bios. There's just incredible ladies here ready and willing to come alongside you and whatever you need that to look like. So thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you.
We'll have Well, have a happy holiday.
Yeah, you too.